I know from a penetration testing perspective, certainly helps automate a lot of the more rote things that pen testers have to do all the time. We'll get more into this, down the road. But one of the easiest examples is, quick exploit development, right? I haven't seen even 10 years of experience. I haven't seen every potential service. I have not encountered every possible CVE.
Web application part is actually the most difficult part to automate through because technologies of web develop so quickly. And they're so complicated, and there's an entire industry of bug bounty hunters designed for this kind of work. You can't really replace that field of cybersecurity.
Welcome to Security Beyond the Checkbox, where we interview experts who don't accept the bare minimum when it comes to cybersecurity. I'm your host, Jason Furch, and today we're talking about AI security. Specifically, we'll attempt to answer the question, is AI the future of penetration testing? Today, I'm joined by Shubham, Khichi, and Nathaniel, Shere, two experienced offensive security professionals. Shubham is the founder and CEO of Nexus InfoSec and has spent the last 7 years working on cyber artificial general intelligence. Recently, he launched Excalibur, an AI-based security testing tool that claims to reduce the human interaction and price of penetration testing without the loss of quality. Nathaniel is the Technical Services Director at Craft Compliance, with over a decade of experience in security, primarily working in penetration testing roles. He's also recognized as a top voice on LinkedIn, frequently posting on penetration testing topics. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time, for joining and lending your experience to today's conversation.
Thanks, Jason.
Thanks, Jason.
So just quick introductions. I'm going to throw this over to you first, Nathaniel. Can you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you're doing in security today?
So I'm primarily a penetration tester. That's what I do 9 to 5, sometimes more than that every day. Been doing it for 10 years. Been working both as a consultant, working with various clients, and also spent a few years working in-house with kind of splitting my time between developers and the security team, which was a lot of fun because then I also got to write the reports and then read them with the developers and actually discuss them, kind of see the other side of things as well. So that was a lot of fun.
I'm Shubham, and you did a much better job than I can ever describe myself. But all day, night, I'm very busy with building out the product Excalibur and trying to see where the convergence of AI and cybersecurity can be met to reduce costs and manpower.
Awesome. Well, we have, Shubham, you're actually building an AI pen testing tool. Nathaniel, you've been in the discipline for a long time. You've both been in the discipline for a long time. So this should be a really good conversation. And Shubham, I want to throw this question over to you. How has the penetration testing landscape evolved with the advent of AI and machine learning technologies?
Commercialization of AI has just happened 2 years ago. Before that, only the pundits and the oracles of artificial intelligence with multiple PhDs were able to be interacting with such technologies. The commercialization does help us know a lot. We can definitely query ChatGPT day and night and model it according to our pen testing needs. I mean, it basically has a general intelligence. If it is out there about cybersecurity, pen testing, tool knowledge, or scripting knowledge, it knows how to do it. Obviously, it's general intelligence, so it's gonna make mistakes. It's not fine-tuned on domain knowledge. That's its biggest problem. But democratization of AI does help you fine-tune certain models to make sure they sound and are domain specific with proprietary knowledge. So yeah, it's evolving. The convergence is very close. Very soon you'll see models coming out which are defined in cyber attacks. They know more about offensive security than most people should know because human knowledge is only limited. You can't compress that much knowledge of the world in our brains. That's why you need teams of people to do this. But if a model can do it with that much compression of knowledge, yeah, that does help you level out the playing field with the attackers.
And Nathaniel, what are your thoughts on that?
A little bit similar. I mean, very exciting to see kind of the public access to AI and how that has made those impacts. I know from a penetration testing perspective, certainly helps automate a lot of the more rote things that pen testers have to do all the time. We'll get more into this, down the road. But one of the easiest examples is, quick exploit development.
Yeah.
I'm on the network, right? I haven't seen even 10 years of experience. I haven't seen every potential service. I've not encountered every possible CVE. So being able to, use ChatGPT or something like that, to feed those examples into it and just get back a quick exploit code or something like that, that I then double check, verify that that's going to actually work, saves me a ton of time and, still lets me prove the impact of a potential vulnerability there.
One of the things that I think a lot of people have hesitation with is the unknown with AI. And Nathaniel, for you, where do you see some of the risks of using AI tools for penetration testing?
Yeah, so you have your traditional false positives, false negatives that are going to be with any automated tool or anything like that, right? False positive where it thinks it found something that's not actually there, or a false negative where something is there but it didn't actually find it. One of the new risks with AI is kind of like what Shubham was just saying about the training, is that AI comes in, you have its kind of its own false positives and false negatives depending on the training that it has. So it might not even fully understand a particular question and give you a new layer of false responses as a result, where you need to first analyze, okay, did they understand my question in the first place? And then can I trust this result? Or do I have to, verify both layers of that sort of thing? The other issue with AI and any automated tool, but again, with AI being so much more confident, just coming in and thinking and saying, this is how things are, is scope, right? So an automated task. I gave you the example of an exploit code. That's fantastic because I'm still in control. I know what I'm testing it against. I know what I'm exploiting. I know that this particular service and this particular vulnerability is in scope. But the more I just let AI take control, the more risk we have of it either crashing something, even though it shouldn't have, potentially testing either an employee, a service, a third party that it shouldn't be accessing because those things aren't in scope. All of that sort of thing is going to be a big risk when implementing these sorts of things.
And Shubham, are you seeing similar risks, or do you have a differing opinion?
The problem which we are having currently with our platform is we don't know when to stop it. Kind of sharing on what Nathaniel just said, the stoppage limit is self-defined. Even in a human, depending on what side of the law you are on, when to stop a pen test or a cyber attack, when a pen test becomes a cyber attack, that line crossage is just a matter of human morale, like what kind of ethics you believe in, right? It's a very fine line. Even humans cross it from time to time. When you bring down a server, you just caused downtime for a company. Maybe you brought down a website, millions of dollars are gone. It's a very fine line. But for a machine to understand that fine line is very difficult. That is the biggest problem we are facing, actually, is you define the scope, you do everything, but what do you do to stop it? I mean, we have a pull the plug system as a bunch of wires which you just can pull it or just hit a button, a red button, but that's not efficient way of dealing with things. Then you're back to square one of what today's vendors do is vulnerability management, and then just a litmus test is what I call it. As long as it looks like and feels like it's going to be a vulnerability, just stop it there and move on to the next one. Anybody with half a brain can do that, but making a machine stop do it is the hardest part. And I agree with Nathaniel in this one. We face a similar problem.
Yeah, the ethical considerations of AI, that's a whole different topic we could go on. But it's something that I see a lot of people are interested in, and they're trying to tackle that part of the problem. And, that's another thing, Shubham, that you brought up some good points, that human interaction, and that's something that a lot of people have this dilemma about. Is my job at risk? I'm a penetration tester. Am I going to lose my job tomorrow? And so the question for you is, can AI penetration testing tools fully replace human expertise, or will they always complement each other?
That's a controversial question, right? And it depends on two things, is time. The more time we spend in this space of developing tools which are enabled by AI, the more clarity we have of what jobs are at risk or not. But ideally, humans are designed to not be slogged at work. They're designed to innovate. They're designed for creativity. Your brain is not designed to memorize a lot of stuff. That's why you don't remember half the stuff which happened, multiple days ago or things like that, because the collective memory of a human brain is not designed for long-term retention. Um, that becomes a big problem whenever you are faced with a challenge and you have to reference back to things again and again. And then we have seen a lot of people literally depressed with their jobs from corporate world, office politics, meetings after meetings after meetings, just to end up in a compliance check the box situation. As a, you know what, just do your bare minimum pen tester and get over with it, get your paycheck and you go from Friday. That's the problem which we are seeing. It's been going on for a while. There are so many humans who are, when you ask them, what do you really want to do apart from security? I was like, I want to be a lumberjack, or I want to be a cowboy, or whatever it is they want to do. They have aspirations. They can inspire and change the world only if they are freed from whatever they are currently doing. Our goal is to remove the most difficult part of security is pen testing. Companies don't like it because we are blockers sometimes of the day, and they cannot afford us because it's too expensive. It's a luxury. It's not a requirement, right? And we want to remove that field so that the people who are smart enough to be a pen tester can evolve into adversary simulations, which is much more craftier field where you know what kind of threats are coming through from outside, and you can focus your energies and creativities in that. I mean, have meetings all day long, talk about things with your uh, creed of people who are experienced in knowing that things. But sitting there hitting commands is something which has been already taken over by vendors. Now we're just removing the human element from it.
Nathaniel, do you lie awake with anxiety that your job's going to be taken over by machines?
I do not. I'm fairly skeptical about AI taking over all of penetration testing. There are certainly aspects of it: vulnerability scanning, automated running port scanning, finding open services, determining version numbers, executing some of those exploits against those version numbers. All of that could be taken over by AI, and some of it's already being done by vulnerability scanners. But there are always a little bit what you talked about, the adversary simulation. I spend most of my time in web applications. They're so custom, they're so proprietary that even the best vulnerability scanners have tons of false positives. There's whole classes of vulnerabilities that they don't even try to touch. Your authorization controls, business logic, all those sorts of things. So I'm very excited about AI taking away some of the more mundane rote things, like anything that I'm just copying commands and pasting them and anything like that. For sure, AI could handle that no problem. But in terms of I'm actually losing my job over this, I don't think so. There's just so many more realms, so many more tests that I can do, including just validating all the results from AI in the first place.
I agree with that, because the web application part is actually the most difficult part to automate through, because technologies of web develop so quickly and they're so complicated, and there's an entire industry of bug bounty hunters designed for this kind of work. You can't really replace that that field of cybersecurity. But internal infrastructure testing, that is machine to machine talk. I feel like that's where there's no need for anything. But web application totally support that. We need more of those guys because everything customer facing nowadays.
So I want to break the fourth wall here and tell our audience to don't get down on your luck, invest your time, get those skill sets you've heard it from the experts. Nathaniel, Can you describe some of the specific ways AI is currently being integrated into penetration testing practices? I know we talked a little bit about the automation, but are there any specific examples that you could provide?
So I mentioned already exploit, writing exploit code very quickly like that. For sure, I've seen tons of people talking about that. That's definitely something big that AI is taking over. Some report generation. There are some report generator tools before AI that were doing a lot of that work. But that's another area that AI can get just a lot better. The writing templates for findings that a tester's never seen before. Even some communication a little bit. I have not seen anybody actually just using AI to automate, communication with the client. I think that would be a little step one too far. But in terms of drafting a template or drafting a draft email or something like that to say to send to a client and then reading it over to make sure it's fine, that I've definitely seen some people talking about. So like we've been talking about, all of the little things to make the overall test faster, anything that can be automated. Generally is trying to be at this point, but we're still not seeing like a full automation from kind of start to finish.
Shubham, do you have anything to add to that?
Primarily because we haven't launched our product yet. But I do have a dog in the race with this question, because the way we wanted to envision is the way we use machine learning at this moment is you can't use GPT 4 or 5, whatever they launch for this specific domain. You have to do your own, even if it is from scratch or fine-tuned using RAG, you have to do it. That is one way you can integrate it. Even if you have that, you can provide it to your entire staff. It's like, okay, this is a pen testing model, go ahead and ask questions to it. It'll provide you with answers without any conscience, without any conscience of, hey, this is wrong, unethical, don't do that, because technically you are doing unethical things. You're just doing it for the right guys. So there shouldn't be any kind of hindrance in that. That's one way to integrate. The other way is using autonomous agents. There's a lot of power coming from autonomous agent software development, where you just provide a question and it goes ahead and finds the right things to do and goes and builds you a software itself. We have had success using that framework to not only execute code, but also self-correction, self-identification of issues, modification of syntax, and re-execution of code up to a certain limit where you don't have to interact with the bot to check its code. It does it on its own. It corrects its problems, just like a human would do. You don't understand anything, you just go out and look for advice, you ask someone, or you Google up the same thing. So that's where we had success. Same with these agents building out reports in exhaustion, where they put in all the details into it. The only problem comes in is the imagination of how customized you want it to be. That's the only problem. That depends on company to company, but at this stage, with the technology of my time, this is what we are capable of doing. We can do all this. It's just a matter of putting guardrails around it, because very quickly this can become weaponized.
So you mentioned, out of the box GPTs aren't going to work in these scenarios. You need to build your own models. What would you say, Shubham, are the most significant challenges in deploying AI technologies for penetration testing?
Understanding an entirety of machine learning is the biggest hurdle. This entire technology of machine learning, the amount of epochs needed, the amount of data sets needed, it's very, very complicated. Companies are doing a good job. Amazon SageMaker does a great job in streamlining all this, but then there is a learning curve to it as well. There's no plug and play. So the barriers of entry is slightly higher to just jumping and doing your own thing, and then just 5, key press and you have a model ready. Also, the biggest challenge is we don't have large enough data set to create a model on its own in cybersecurity. I mean, this field has been there since the past 30 years, 30 years to 35 years. I mean, before that, internet was just born. So cybersecurity, not fracking or those phone hacking things. I'm not talking about that. Computer security. It's been there very recently. The amount of data allocated to this is very less. There's not a lot of blog posts enough to train a brand new model. So there is going to be issues with data collection. The challenge comes in is you need to build up synthetic data to ensure that you fill in the gaps on every single possibility. I mean, you break down entire Windows OS. There are so many vulnerabilities which you can come up with, and documentation which you can come up with, which even Microsoft doesn't publish. What if there was a way to, generate that synthetic data and then populate your data set to train your model? That's the first hurdle and the biggest hurdle people will face, because the brains of the operation is your large language model. The rest is engineering problem.
And Nathaniel, where do you see some of the biggest challenges?
So I agree with most of that. That's a very technical answer in terms of the kind of technical challenges. When I was thinking about this question, I was looking at it still from the more general penetration testing engagement, right? That when I'm starting an engagement, I'm working with the client, understanding the scope, understanding potentially what their goals are with the test, more than just, hey, can you find the vulnerabilities? What kind of data is important to you? What kind of systems are important to you? What their architecture or something might look like? What are their most important aspects of the business and those sorts of things? Trying to understand more of the business and really customizing the penetration test for the business, which as a manual tester takes me 2 conversations and I'm able to adapt my more generic process. I think as an AI tool, that would be almost a whole new set of programs, potentially some new prompts. But if you don't have that ability to begin with, then your modified prompts aren't going to help you either there. So kind of really encapsulating the entire engagement of a penetration test, more than just the technical, found a vulnerability, exploited it. Yes, it's exploitable. Here's the report.
Yeah, and one thing I've spoken to a few other folks in the AI security space, and one of the things that came about was the topic of trust. There's all of these tools out there. Everyone's throwing AI powered in front of their solutions. You talk to a salesperson, you ask them, okay, well, what part of that solution is AI? How does the AI actually work? And they're like, we'll get back to you. And so I always kind of think in the back of my head, one of the challenges, Nathaniel, kind of just piggybacking off of what you said with the engagement is, are clients actually going to trust the machine and the output of that machine? And I think that kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier of always having that human interaction involved into it. But I always think about trust when it comes to AI.
I think you're still almost always going to need a professional to come in and say, yes, I've looked at the results. I have validated that these are legitimate results, and you can trust the tool output. Either that's going to have to be somebody in-house, or it's going to have to be a consultant, somebody like that. But
so, open question, and Nathaniel, I want to throw this over to you first, is looking ahead, what are some of the emerging trends and predictions for the future of AI and penetration testing as you're seeing it today?
So I think definitely the emerging trend is that most of your pen tests are going to get a little faster because some of that process is going to get more automated. I am excited that there are tools like what you've got that will automate a lot of the process, even automating most of the pen testing process. Like I said, I'm not personally worried about my job. I think what I do is well beyond what an AI tool can do today, even a few years down the road. But bringing a full pen tester in is generally pretty expensive. That is an expensive engagement. Most companies, even medium to large companies, can only do it once or twice a year. So you're potentially missing huge swaths of vulnerabilities, potential gaps that are just not going to be seen for 6 months, that a hacker might come in at that point and find something. So being able to bring in a tool to get some more automation, get almost real-time security testing on an ongoing basis, and then just validating the tools output maybe once, twice a year, I think that's going to be a lot more common going forward.
It's going to become very cheap and affordable for it's going to be very cheap and affordable for companies to interact with more and more vendors, jumping into implementing some sort of AI automation into their platform. Now, there's a lot of vendors out there who are just bullshitting that they have AI into their platform just for marketing hype and uneducated influences which they're trying to pull in from. But if you see through all that rubble, is there are only few companies who are actually doing some innovation into it. The second thing which I see is a lot of open source development in penetration testing tools with the power of GPT-4 or any kind of API, particularly C2 frameworks. Right, these are one of the most complex frameworks out there. Some of them are much straightforward. Some of them are so hard to even deploy that you even forget about doing that. But with the power of just enter your command and that kind of exploit will get created and then sent out with the payload. That's the power which we are seeing. The ability to make this so easy to deploy is what I'm seeing in open source collection. The third thing is this is just the third one is just very, very controversial, actually. It's just my opinion. But hear me out. I think there will be an opportunity for CISOs and CEOs where a doubt will be created, where they can actually compare, should I even hire in this economy a human versus a machine? A doubt is all it takes to make the distinction, because currently there is no doubt. I mean, you need a human, you need a human. That is the end of the conversation. How many is the problem? But creating an alternative, just like an alternative product to whatever you get in the supermarket, you start having a doubt whether they are side by side placed. You go to Target, you have their own brand versus the actual true brand. And then you start thinking, okay, yeah, this is actually affordable. Gives me the same flavor and same everything. What am I paying extra $5 for? Example. But that is the doubt of insecurity which is created, where you have this technology out there and someone is monopolizing on it. It comes out to the person who is actually running a business to understand what's more valuable to their business. Obviously, if a human is valuable, do it. Don't skimp out on it, but then treat them nicely. Don't lay them off after a year because we don't have the budget. But if there's a machine needed for your job, then be an advocate for it. Don't just go back to, oh, along with the machine, we need a human too. Then you just wasted the potential of the machine. So that's the problem which we are seeing. The third problem is the biggest problem, which is my prediction for this year and the next year.
I like controversial topics, and it's interesting because we're already seeing that with customer service facing roles. So
yes,
a lot of chatbots being rolled out. I can't remember the name of the company off the top of my head, but there was one company that completely downsized their customer service department, or at least a large portion of it, in favor of a chatbot. And now they're seeing, tens of millions of dollars in return on that investment. And you're probably not too far off on the fact that eventually someone's going to look at the technology versus a human, look at the price tag and say, well, it's an acceptable risk for us. We'll just go with the technology.
Yeah, I've seen companies accepting bigger security risk. I'm sure they can accept this risk. And I don't know if you guys have heard about this company called FreshBooks, right? It's an accounting company. Recently, I've heard that they laid off a large amount of their software development team in replacement for a machine, an AI platform which can code for them. Obviously, they are not doing anything innovative where immense amount of creative knowledge is needed, but it's more like, hey, here's a pull request. We need to fix this bug. Go ahead and fix it through machine. It's maintenance mode. So I think now it's getting into a maintenance phase because most companies are fully developed. They are just hiring engineers for maintenance work. It's like, hey, it's a new feature, new bug coming in, go fix it. What's our problem in our system? Look at it. That's where I'm seeing already a transformation coming through. So it shouldn't be that hard to figure out in security too, because it's a very expensive field. It's no joke.
Last question here, Nathaniel, I'll throw this one over to you. And it's a little bit more of a general question. So we've talked quite a bit at length on the penetration testing side, but AI technology, every single day we're finding new use cases where we've barely scratched the surface of what is capable of it because we just haven't thought about it yet. Same thing with the internet 30 years ago. We didn't think it was going to evolve into TikTok videos and YouTube shorts. So Nathaniel, what are some other areas of security where AI can be integrated, or maybe it's already being integrated?
So I'm sure it's at least being started, but I'm very excited to see it on the SOC side, on the defense, monitoring, alerting. I know my first job, there was a whole different department handling 24/7 SOC services. And one of their big, keeping them up at night sort of problems was correlating alerts, right? Because you might see an alert from one IP, and then you see the same activity from a different IP. Well, are those two different attacks, or is that the same user just switching their IP? All of it's very complicated stuff. And for a manual person to try to go through, gigabytes and gigabytes of log data, trying to analyze that, there's just no way. So I absolutely am very excited to see what AI can do there. And I know you wanted to step away from penetration testing, but selfishly, because that's what I know here, even just from the penetration testing side of things, in my reports, I try to say, here's when this activity was occurring. Go look in your logs, making sure you're seeing this. Because if you're not, that's another gap that you should, investigate. But that's difficult, right? I'm giving them a PDF report. They're going to have gigabytes of logs. It might be from a few weeks ago at that point by the time they're actually looking at it. So again, being able to maybe just take that report from me, give it to AI, tell AI where all the logs are and say, hey, find this activity. What do we see? What do we not see? That would be an amazing feature.
Along with pen testing, ingestion of gigabytes of logs is a bigger problem for humans. We totally get that. Along with this development of Excalibur, there's a separate project which is going on. It's a very pet project at this moment because getting proprietary data for logs is super, super difficult. And we can't use synthetic documentations for it. You need to have legit data to train a model. So that is what we're trying to look into to see if we can build something which can not replace SOC analysts, but give them enough power to jump into a meeting and on the spot come up with answers using this technology. Because if a red teamer or pen tester goes ahead and does an attack like Nathaniel is talking about, and he or she goes ahead and asks, hey, go ahead and look at your logs. If the problem is nowadays people don't even know how to look at logs. That's their problem. You ask them to open up their entire Sentinel, whatever portal they have for Microsoft, they don't even know where to look for, or where to put the IP or FQDN or things like that. That's the big problem we are seeing with SOC analysts. That's why their jobs are already outsourced to, the big fours who are sucking up everything from the economy, right? So that's already gone. Their jobs already displaced. The problem comes in is now these big fours or whoever is handling that SOC department also handles 4 more clients who has more gigabytes of data. Now, no matter what tool you use on planet Earth, you still have to sift through that data manually. They can build dashboards, they can build automations, but there's only so much they can do to identify what's good from bad unless they attribute it to that attack. The transformation of that technology is going to change the world. And I'm sure anybody who listens to this podcast, please build something like that. Because we need more people to jump into this field and build something creative and build something innovative. It's just not me who's going to build everything from scratch, right? We need more democratization of tools which actually help people. Instead of attaching a tool to a person, you want the tool to do everything for you. You are there just to have meetings.
Fantastic perspectives. Well, Nathaniel, Shubham, thank you so much again for your time. We covered a lot of different topics here. A lot of great takeaways. AI is definitely not going anywhere. It's going to continue to be embedded in our everyday lives. It's going to transform the penetration testing landscape, but for now, we can sleep soundly that our jobs aren't going to be totally lost. Nathaniel, how can people reach out to you?
I'm on LinkedIn almost every day. Definitely reach out.
Awesome. And Shubham, the same for you?
Yep. LinkedIn is the only sane place left before it becomes like Twitter. So we're going to stay there.
LinkedIn shorts are coming soon. Don't worry.
I know.
We'll have
I've
those.
seen that. It's so horrible.
We'll have those links in the description. Well, again, thank you so much for the conversation. It's been fantastic.
Thanks, Jason.
Thank you so much, guys.